Hello, hello. There we go. Okay, we are streaming. Just gonna grab this. Get this set up. I'm gonna change a couple things real quick. So, we are continuing with coding our character sheet. It's cool. I have a lot of fun stuff to show today. I am going to... Okay. So, we are going to get grinding here. My objective right now is, so I want to show everybody where we're at. So I can do .NET run here. So we are all compiling now. I did some development work off stream because it was kind of the boring stuff of me just moving over my various libraries, and that doesn't really have anything to do with how I implement it in safe. Oh, a little bit, but I thought that honestly that was kind of the boring part, so I really wanted to show the cool parts, so that's what we're doing today. I'm gonna real quickly here send this. I'm gonna send this to my friend. Oh. Got the wrong link. But basically... Okay. So now we're going to get into it. So, I have my safe stack application running here, and I can click onto it here. So here's where we're at right now. If it loads. There we go. So, couple things that we've added so far, right? So we have the character name up here, so we can do Jav quick. We have the attributes and core skills. We have intelligence, reflex, strength. They're backwards for some reason. Usually it goes strength, reflex, intelligence. So we can figure out why that is. But you can see here, if I increase this, all the governing skills underneath it increase. You can do all this fun stuff. Down here you can add vocations. So this top row here is, so I can say like blacksmith. So this is my vocation row. I can determine, okay, this is governed by strength and intelligence for a blacksmith, and then I can set his level here. What's cool here is underneath I could go ahead and say, you know, like smithing, my smithing skill, and I'm also going to give that the intelligence and strength, and then I can increase this, but you'll notice I can't increase it above its vocation level. So we did that part right. And if we want here, we can increase more of these. So we can say like, now, eventually when we click onto here, right, it's going to drop open a dialog box for us. And it's, or like a suggested like strings. And it's going to list out all the different weapons and magics and stuff. But then also we have this button here, we can hit plus on this, and we can make another one of these. So if we want to be a blacksmith and a sailor, then I feel like a sailor, I feel like intelligence, well, it depends. If I'm like a pilot, like a ship pilot, then like navigation would be a part of it, so definitely intelligence. And then would reflex really come into play? I'm gonna say no, but I think for strength, but they do tie a lot of ropes and stuff. But I think definitely strength, because all the climbing and the manual labor, it's pretty grueling, and the endurance. Okay, and then we can delete these if we want to by clicking this down here. So we can remove those, or we can add them. And then also down here at the bottom, so I can add in items now. So I can say like arming sword, and I can do arming sword, and it pops up here. And it actually imports the data over from the CSV file, and has the value, the weight. We can remove it here if we click this little thing here. We can do like, I don't know, is epilogue in here? Yeah, this is my sword. So there you go. Yeah, that's essentially it. So then what we want to do here, so what I'd like to have is, and that's all really cool, that's where we've gotten to. Now what I want, next thing we're going to work on here, and I don't know like if we're doing this the best order, to be honest, but we're just gonna do it this way because that's just how I'm doing it. So if I do, I want to show here the old, I should really just have a still frame of the actual character sheet, so I don't have to do this every single time, but whatever. So what we're making today is, so we want to make these. So these are weapon attack, like attacks, combat rules. Now the interesting thing here, so you know, we have the name, we have the attribute and core skills, that's awesome. We have the vocation and core skills here, but what we do not have, we're going to need this info table. That's going to come later. That'll be probably one of the second to last things that we do. But we have these weapon combat role tables. Now, the only issue with these combat role tables is two things. So the way I have these on the sheet here, you'll notice, so for instance, a weapon class, so weapon class has all these different things about it. You know, what if you hold it in one hand? What if you hold it in two hands? What if you're dual wielding with it? What's its penetration versus armor? What's its range? What's its damage? How many engageable opponents do you have in a round with it? So like some weapons, like a machine gun, you could shoot a lot of people really quick. But like a bolt action rifle, you couldn't. Area of effect, weapon resource. Now, this is a really great way to represent this as a one-line kind of piece of information. But we have to consider here actually the fact that okay, how do we want to display this? So And remember, this is the automated sheet, right? So we're going to be doing the calculations for the person. It's going to be all done for them. So when we look at this way of doing it then, this isn't necessarily the best way to do it. Because here, a lot of this stuff is left uncalculated. So for instance here, melee, that's fine. But when we do it in the, when it's in the, what's it called? When it's in the frickin' character sheet, it's gonna be, you know, actually converted to an actual value. We might keep melee off to the side with like some parentheses, so that's fine. Rapid, for instance, this is gonna be a calculated number. Area of effect might be, you know, a calculated number. Range, and the big thing with range is that range, a couple of these things like range and engageable opponents and area of effect, they all scale off of your dice pool size. And what you'll notice from here, right, is that the dice pool size, you know, you have 3 per instance of a weapon class here. And so that can be a problem. So, you know, you can imagine you'd have like 66 here, nothing here, 66 here. Penetration is going to stay constant across all those. But if you start getting, you know, different ranges and stuff, how are you going to cram 3 different ranges into this one box? So you could try it. It might look bad. Okay. It would definitely look bad. Same thing for engageable opponents here. You have to cram it all in. So it's going to be like, and maybe you can use like slashes to denote like, hey, whatever this first row is, the second row, like the first row corresponds to the thing before the first slash in this text. You could do that. Okay, but then with area of effect, it really gets crazy because like this is going to have a string of text that's going to say like, hey, for a cone calculation, here's the distance of the cone, here's the angle of the cone. And if you try to do that 3 freaking times in that little input box, it's going to look gross. And then on top of all of that, remember, if you have different ammunition, right? So if you have different ammo sources, if I scroll up here, I don't even factor those in here. Like over on this page, I just go ahead and you have your bow calculation up here, and then you just remember to add in your weapon resource down here. And so how are you going to include like, so you're going to then jam, I don't know, it honestly feels like a lot. I think it's too much. I think it might be better if when we perform the calculation, and who knows, maybe I end up changing it, maybe it will look like this. Also, I just kind of feel like if I'm going to look on my, so right now you're looking at this on a 1440p monitor, so if I go over here, it just looks really crammed, to be honest. It looks crammed, and to be honest, this isn't even like the worst case, right? So what instead I'm thinking about doing is that it'll say like, see, I don't know. I don't know what the best way to do this is. See, this is difficult because I like this UI on one hand, but on the other hand, I don't think it's going to translate. Because if we look over at our web app here, and remember, because like right now when you're looking at this, this is I'm on a 1440p screen. I really want this to be really aesthetically pleasing, and so if I think about cramming this entire that entire UI box there. And remember, these are going to calculate out. I'm afraid it's going to look kind of gross. And the nice thing is, the cool thing is, because we're using MVU and we're doing functional programming, whatever we're going to create out of this is going to be super duper, it's going to be super duper easy to refactor and stuff. So what I'm thinking is just kind of plowing ahead at full steam, making it the way that I want, and then we can even do 2 iterations on this, because once we have the underlying code, it's gonna fly really quick. So we're gonna go ahead and just get right into it. So what I have so far, so we are gonna have to do a little bit of logic here. So we're up here at our character. Character, right? He represents the holistic view of this page. Now, character needs a couple things in order to, so we have our UI here. So we have character here, and then we have combat role list. Okay, combat role list. Yeah, we're gonna have it like right here. And combat role list needs to do a couple things. So he's gonna be kind of special here. So he's gonna go ahead and we're gonna go ahead and define out what, and actually we don't want this here really. We want this, if I go to here, we want to determine what does character need to bundle up. So like it needs to have a holistic view of the entire character and all the things that factor into combat, and it needs to pass it down. So we're actually going to go over here. Is it, oh, here? No, that's the wrong one. It's trying to use Vim. So how do I paste? P? Yeah. So we want, let me do V here. We can do this. So again, we're gonna go ahead and try to do this in a way where whatever this combat list is that appears below here, whatever this, it's gonna look something like this, right? Here's the markdown. Whatever this ends up becoming, we want it to where from our function, from the top guy, from character. So if we look over here at our kind of F code ionide look at here, character, he's almost at the root, right? So character is, he is what your character is. He's your name. You can even go look at the type of character here. He's got a name. He's got an equipment list. He's got his attributes and core skills. He's got his vocation list. He is going to call the update function for the combat row beneath, and it's his responsibility. We're going to pack up all the information that's needed to calculate those combat role lists, and he will pass it down. So that's what we're going to define here. So really simply, I need to, in my head, understand, okay, and I love the MVU because of this, because it forces you to say, hey, if we look at this on a project thing right now, we're going to do a lot of our stuff here over in the shared repository or the shared project. And so this is just pure programming, and this isn't tied to our UI or anything. That's why I'm so confident whether we end up going with like this UI here, even though I'm worried that it might be crammed, or we try to split it up into like separate lines per, like if you have it one-handed or two-handed. The wonderful thing is that if we do it the right way with pure functions, it's not going to matter. Okay. So we have a combat role here. What combat role data, what does the character need to get in order to give down to the lower level, to the child, the combat row list, in order to calculate stuff? So he's definitely going to need the attribute list. And so we can go ahead here and say open attribute. Oops. And attributes like strength, reflex, or intelligence here. So we say open attribute. So we have our attribute. We're definitely going to, and we don't really need a vocation list here. We more specifically, we actually only need the vocational skills. So we'll say open vocational or vocation skills. And actually, to be 100% honest, we can even, if it's gonna be character's responsibility to give us exactly what we need, then we don't even need vocational skill. We can actually grab, because a vocational skill is either a magic skill, a weapon skill, or actually, I'm sorry, I said it wrong. So a vocation skill, let's go look at vocation skill. Let's go, I go look at this. So a vocation skill is either a vocational skill. This would be like if you're a blacksmith, this would be like your smithing skill. Then it has a weapon skill. So this would be like, you know, any kind of combat skill, and then magic skills. And those are all things that could be under your like your vocation. So then what we're going to go ahead and do here is go back over to combat rolls here. I'm only calculating combat rolls. I don't give a crap about your smithing stuff. I just want to know about your weapon skills and your magic skills, because those are things you can attack with. So we're actually going to do this. We're going to say, hey, we don't want a vocation list because I'd have to digest it here. Instead, what I want a weapon skill list. So I want to know what weapon skills you're good at. And this will be of weapon skill. And actually, I don't even know if that'll work actually, because I think the way I have my type set up here, if I do open vocation skill here, and this is an F# question here. So with my weapon skill here, with my weapon skill here, I'm a little bit worried because I'm using the type here. Can I say, because I just want the weapon skill here, but I'm casting it. So actually I do have to do it like this. Okay, that's how I have to do it, and maybe I need to fix that type later then. So we are just going to include our vocational skill. And then we're going to go ahead here. So instead of weapon skill list, you will be vocation skill list, which is easy enough to grab. And then we're going to go ahead here and say vocation, and actually, yeah, whatever. Okay. And then we're also going to go ahead here and do, we will need the equipment list for sure. So we need the vocation skill list, the equipment list. I'm trying to think what other things you need to calculate there. So you know about their attributes, you know about their vocation skills, you know about the equipment that they have. You also are going to need their the attribute determined. So it's, let's see if I can remember it here. So basically, like if they have injuries or if they have penalties from their from how much armor they're wearing. So we're gonna need the attribute determined dice mod effects. It's a really complicated name, and I'm gonna find a better name for it. But essentially, what that means is, hey, if you have a skill like stealth, an attribute determined dice mod effect is a dice modification on some kind of dice pool, but it only applies to skill pools that are governed by a specific attribute. So if stealth is governed by reflex, does it make sense that if I have something that is only affecting it's penalizing my strength, that it would penalize my stealth? No. So you have to specify it there. So we're gonna do this. So we're gonna say attribute determined dice mod effect list. dice. Definitely have to do some renaming here. Okay, and then I'm trying to think what other things you would need. Actually, you know what? So what I'm thinking here is that you don't even need to pass half the stuff. Because so the vocational skill list, your vocation skill, that is already being calculated, right? So that's already being calculated, and because you have a dice pool on that, so you actually might not need the only problem I could see. So if you just say, hey, I'll just look at whatever my vocation skill is for my medium sword, and I will just take that value, whatever that is. See, there's kind of a problem there, though. There's one big flaw. That being that, for instance, if you had a vocational dice pool, and let me turn this light here. So if you had a vocational dice pool, and for whatever reason, there we go. So if you have a vocational dice pool, and you're like, let's say I have my medium sword skill under my vocation. I somehow take enough injuries or whatever to take that to 0. So I have 0 dice. I have 0 d6. Let's say then I take additional injury. You can't go negative below that dice pool. However, then you still are at 0, right? But then if you go over to the weapon skill, if you go over to the weapon skill, that weapon skill, if he just gets the after the fact vocational skill, then he isn't aware that technically you're negative below 0. He's not aware of that. And so I think I have to calculate it kind of raw here, because if I don't, there's no way to know that the dice pool is gone negative. There's no way to know. Unless on that dice pool, I want to add a parameter that denotes negative dice. Because if I say, hey, a dice pool here can, like if I add on to dice pool, the negative, that honestly might be a really smart move. My original idea with a dice pool is that a dice pool, can't represent something below 0. It can't represent no dice. But should a dice pool be aware of, hey, I'm at 0 dice, but I have penalties on me right now that even if I gain dice right now, I'd still be in the red. I'd still be kind of negative. And that's a good question. Like, should a dice pool be aware? Should a dice pool be aware that it's negative-ish? Now the nice thing is, if that were the case, that would simplify this whole thing here. Because instead of having to take in, and I know we're just doing a lot of talking, right? But this is how I think through stuff. So instead of having to do all the logic here, where I have to drag in my attribute and my vocational skill list, and or in my attribute determined skill, and like whatever other stuff there is. All right. So, see, honestly, I kind of feel like a dice pool should be aware of the negative. Because otherwise, like, I'm literally doing the calculation twice for no good reason. And this is obviously a component of the game that you have to be aware of on the dice pool. See, and this actually, oh man, I wanted this to be simpler. Or I wanted this to be an easier one tonight, but we might need to think bigger brain here. And now the thing is, what you'd actually want to do is you wouldn't want to have it at, now here's the crazy thing, okay, bear with me here. You would want to do it like a, see, you'd want to do it as a union type between a positive dice pool and a net, like, hey, like this dice pool, and then also representing like negative dice. And what's funny is that I already do have that. That is exactly what that is exactly what dice pool mod is here. It's literally like the add dice and the remove dice. So, and it's one of those two. So actually, it kind of looks like that maybe the actual root base of what should actually be shown on the character sheet is like the dice pool mod. Because that guy can represent negative dice. And then I don't have to do the calculation like 5 different times. I could just do it one place. But when I do that, it's going to have to change a lot of my logic. But this actually makes the most sense. Interesting question here. Well, I'm actually going to use the restroom here real quick, and then I'm going to come back here This might be a tomorrow morning thing, because this is going to take a lot more brain power than I thought I was going to do tonight. But I actually think that the correct way to do this is going to be to represent those negative dice. I think you have to. Because if you don't, you're not making any sense. Okay, I'm going to use the restroom, and I'll be right back on. Or I'll say bathroom break. Okay. So, we're back. Yeah. So we're back, but I was thinking about this as I was using the restroom. This is gonna be a large scope thing because essentially what we're gonna have to do this dice pool here. He is gonna get renamed to like positive dice pool, and then the other one's gonna be a negative dice pool. And oh, see, I don't even know if that works though. Hold on, wait. I might have to do it this way. I might actually have to drag everything in and do the calculations. Because if I don't, because like essentially I need to be able to have see, yeah. I am gonna have to bring everything in. There's no way around it. Now the nice thing is I can make that as functions and reuse it, but there's just no two ways about it. There's no two ways about it. And I had the right idea from the start. I have to drag things in and do the calculations. Because there are weird circumstances where there are literally just weird circumstances where it could mess things up if I don't. And it's sad. So I'm gonna well, that would be bad, so I'll have to do it. Alright, well, to be 100% honest, this is gonna be a pretty big deal thing then. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm not gonna stream anymore. I'm too tired. I've worked all day, I've done yard work additionally, so I'm just out of it. But it's kind of a sad stream because I don't feel like I've done anything. I was programming earlier today though, so I have got my programming reps in for the day. I will either do this tomorrow or Monday. I will try to find some time to go more in depth. But yeah, we're gonna literally have to specify out here all the data that combat rule data needs to grab, and he'll be responsible. It's too bad. It's too bad. Oh, you know what? I did just have a really good idea. I did just have a really good idea. And it kind of, it actually works both ways. So what you do is instead of storing things as a dice pool or whatever, you actually store them as a series of dice pool mods, like a list of dice pool mods. And that way, and you just store that all together and you just have, yeah, that's exactly what you do. If you just store it as a series of dice pool mods, then you can really easily calculate. You can just write a function. I already have the function actually that just converts all of those into one actual dice pool that you can actually read out. But then what's nice is if you need to transport that list and transport it somewhere else across your database, you don't run into the problems of like, okay, if I went negative, did I go negative and which dice did I remove first? Like, you don't have that problem at all. So actually, that's a really good insight right there. So I need to store skill dice pools. Damn, this is a bad marker, isn't it? Store skill dice pools as dice pool modification lists. This way you can... Yes, this makes so much sense. This is actually the right way to do it. This way you can pass the data, the list, knowing you've factored in all calculations. I love that. And we'll end that there. That basically, so that my whole problem can be avoided where, like, what I'm going to do is for a skill, so if I go to a skill, so instead of storing here on a skill a dice pool, we can store a dice pool, but we want to store the list that was used to calculate it actually. And if we store that list, we can convert that to a dice pool. So we actually don't need to store the dice pool and it's a deterministic function, right? Or it's a pure function that'll convert the calculation to a dice pool. So we don't need to, we can get to that with the function. We don't need to store the data twice. But then also we can pass that, hey, here's all the calculations that are going into our list. We can pass that around. We won't need to drag in things like, we won't need to drag in things like, because the thing is, the problem is, the scope of that's gonna grow so disproportionately. Like, I don't want to, every time I want to have to calculate something, I have to drag everything in to recalculate it. It's better to do it all in one place, keep all of the way we calculate it, keep everything together, and then just, just drag in that one list that is for the skill, drag that in, and then you don't need to drag in attribute, determined data, any kind of skill. Like, it's all handled in one place. You just drag in your equipment and your skills. That's all. That's literally all we'll need is just the skill. That's so good. Yes. So actually, legit, unless I'm completely bonkers, this right here will be all you need. And anything else is not really necessary. Yeah. Easy. Easy peasy. Cool. Okay. Well, I'll end up coding this. I'll probably do this tomorrow, like first thing in the morning, because I'm kind of like excited now. But I am gonna go kind of wrap it down here, make a little food, and I'm gonna start winding down and going to bed because it's late here. So, thanks for watching. If you watched, much better stream next time, I promise. Peace.